Welcome to the DL, the podcast show that talks about everything to do with truck repair and diagnostics for the heavy truck and construction industry. I am your host, Tyler Robertson, CEO and founder of Diesel Laptops. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the DL. I am your host, Tyler Robertson, and this is the show where we talk about everything to do in the whole diesel technician industry. And before I introduce my guest today, I want to just give a quick announcement. We're going to wrap up season 1 here with about this episode and one more next week. Then we're going to take about the month of July off, maybe the first week or two of August. Summer's here, people on vacations, COVID things going on. So we just thought I'd take a little bit of a break and start season 2 back up in about a month. So with that said, let me introduce to you our guest today, which is Tim Spurlock with American Diesel Training Centers. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tyler. Great to be here.
So, Tim, I've known you for a while. We've done some webinars together. We've been at conferences. We've worked together for a while. But for people that don't know American Diesel Training Centers, why don't you just give kind of a 10,000-foot overview on what you guys do, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Sure. I'll give you a little bit. I call it like the brief Cliff Notes version. We founded American Diesel Training Centers literally 3 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, because I'd spent, my background was all in educational publishing and educational technology, and I had spent 8 years running sales for a curriculum company that produced and sold automotive and truck courseware and curriculum. So I'd been to all of the big name truck programs in the United States, community colleges, little high school programs, everywhere. And it was just very obvious that the supply of diesel technicians coming into the industry was dramatically outweighed by demand. Basically, there just weren't enough people in the seats. And we identified the two biggest barriers to people coming into this profession are time and cost. In today's world, people just don't have 2 years to sit in a traditional educational program, and they don't have $30,000 to $40,000 to spend for kind of a private technical education program. And so we just decided to disrupt the model. So we founded the company. It's a 10-week program. It's 300 hours. It focuses just on the basics, which is what companies want. So keeping trucks on the road, right? Wheels, tires, electrical, after treatment. We don't do much with engines. Since then, we've become one of the largest producers of diesel mechanics in the United States. We've put out more than 350 graduates who are working at well over 125 different companies. So we've spread our footprint. We started out in Columbus. We have a second facility in Cincinnati. But we've really spread our footprint just due to kind of some innovative business models that I'm sure we'll talk about to other cities and other states around the country.
Yeah. So, and you're not a very old company, right? You've only been around for a couple of years at this point?
Yeah. Our first class started the week after the 4th of July in 2017. So yeah, we, officially our doors haven't even been open 3 years. Correct. Yeah.
So, okay. I got to ask, how did you make the leap from what you were doing before? Because you're not a diesel technician by trade or been around trucks and all that stuff, right? So how did you make that leap from what you were doing into what you have going on now?
It's funny. So, I remember many of our clients at my previous company, like I said, were very large programs. And, I think probably how I made the leap was I thought that we could basically work backwards from what companies wanted. And so we were getting calls at my company all the time from companies saying, we'd like to buy your curriculum and courseware. And we would say, it's really for a 2-year educational program. And they would say, we don't care. We're hiring people off the street with no training. So it was really more about, I knew that I was very confident that I could solve the problem. And really the key is my business partner, Chris, right? Yep. So Chris Ellis and I had coached baseball together. He was a truck engineer at the kind of the crown jewel PACCAR factory, the Kenworth factory down in Chillicothe, Ohio. And I just thought that we could model this program because computer coding boot camps were really becoming in vogue in that time. And I thought, there's really a lot of similarities to what computer coding boot camps do to what a hands-on intensive truck boot camp, which is essentially what we are, could be. And so that's really how we did it. But, we did a lot of interviews and research with companies and said, basically, if we build this, will you come? And they all said, yeah. And it really has panned out.
Yep. And your business model has changed from what you first envisioned to what you guys are doing today with your brick and mortar store that you first started, that location. And now you've transitioned to something else. So I know you had to you went and kind of had to go raise some money to get this thing started the way you thought you'd have to do it. And it kind of changed as you've gone on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, correct. Sure. So, I mean, we really are a great example of a market-driven solution, right? So we've taken, market feedback constantly, and we've pivoted our model to address that. So yeah, it's hilarious. Like I'll show you it sometime. If I showed you our initial business plan was just to be a little cottage business here in Columbus, Ohio. So we went out and we literally raised investor money in our first pitch. It was probably a hour tops pitch, and we left, got back on the airplane, and we're like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. So, we got a building and did a lease and bought a truck and got tools and all that kind of stuff. And then, so we have our first class, and calls start coming in. Like, somebody would hear about us, or people, we got lucky and were included in a couple trade magazine articles or whatever. And calls started coming in saying, can you put a school here? And can you put a school, in Michigan? And can you put a school in Texas? And, I mean, as you know, right, you've done plenty of them yourself, running around doing real estate deals, especially when they're outside of Ohio, that's kind of it's a tough model for guys that don't have a lot of cash, right? So we just decided to get really innovative, and we really have kind of morphed the company. We still have our traditional kind of brick and mortar programs in Columbus and Cincy, but we've morphed to where we can just bring our program to you. So if you're a company and you have a need for new diesel technicians, our belief is we just go find them in your community and train them for you at your location, right? And then the second model is it morphed even further. We had individuals who owned independent shops, and they read about us. And our first one was a great partner of ours, Jesse Wheeler, out in Kansas City. He'd just seen my stuff on LinkedIn, and he was like, I'd love to be a part of what you guys are doing. So Jesse had the shop. So Jesse provided the infrastructure, and we just laid our program on top of it. So yeah, it really is a case of just market driven. And that really allows us to serve companies all over the United States. Like one of the first meetings we ever had, the fact that we was a ginormous publicly traded company here in the United States. And it was one of the best questions we ever got. And we still use it and took it very seriously. They said, we love your model. It's great. But what can you do for us outside of Columbus, Ohio? Yeah. And that's really the catalyst that really got us thinking about it.
Yeah. Same thing with my business too, right? It started with one thing, and then people keep asking for more things. And all of a sudden you find out there's more doors of opportunity and a better way to do things, and you just keep iterating and making your business a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And it just keeps spooling up that way. So one of the things you mentioned was LinkedIn. And, as a lot of people know, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. You're on LinkedIn a lot. And that's where I really first found you, was on LinkedIn. But I really didn't understand what you were doing until I had the chance to hear you speak at HDAW in Vegas 2 years ago. Yeah. And that's when it really clicked with me, because this whole industry forever has been talking about the diesel technician shortage. And we got to go get them in high school, and we got to get these kids convinced they got to be diesel technicians. And it never made much sense to me, because I'm like, man, that kid has had 18 years of his parents telling him to go to a 4-year degree, right? And you think you're going to go in there for 2 hours and convince them to be a diesel tech? Like it just ain't going to work. And you had a much better idea on how to go find diesel technicians, right? Because really, they're everywhere. You just got to know where to find them. And that's really what you guys have been great at. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's correct. And again, like my 25 years of working on college campuses, calling on college professors, working on technical school campuses, in the publishing industry. I mean, I just had the perfect view of what the real situation was. And so, yeah, I mean, I always thought, and again, we could have a 6-hour podcast about the challenges of the U.S. educational system. And you said it exactly right. I just thought, nobody knows what they really want to do when they're 18 years old. Heck, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 40 years old, right? And so it's almost like companies are having to work within a system that didn't work. So we just decided to change the system, right?
Yeah.
So what we really identified is that the profile student for us is not a 17-year-old kid who's being recruited out of a career center, right? The profile student for us is a 25-year-old who has some life experience, has probably had some successes and had some failures, has family obligations. And we say, Tyler, that they're in high effort, low skill, low wage jobs, right?
Yep.
They were that kid that bought into the college for all mentality, that got $40,000 in student loan debt, or that went to school and decided it wasn't for them, or just didn't go to school, like many people, because they just don't know what they want to do with their lives. Well, then life happens, and next thing they know, they're in a warehouse job making $12 an hour, and it's hard work, it's good work, but there's not much of a career progression. And what we have really proven is that in a very short amount of time, we can take those skills which are really intangibles, right? You show up, you make effort,
Yep.
you do the right things, and transfer them into this business where they can have a very, very, you can call it a structured career path if you want to move up, or you could just have a very focused career path and remain as a diesel technician. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of CEOs who started out in the business as diesel mechanics, right? And that's really what we set out to prove.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's just put this in perspective for people. So say you make a deal with someone and you're going to launch a new training center in, whatever city, Miami, Dallas, wherever it is. And you guys got to go find people that are interested in being diesel technicians that have no idea they want to be diesel technicians, right?
Yep.
So, can you talk a little bit about how you do that, and what kind of response do you get when you guys start going out there trying to find people to fill these classes? Is it hard to find people? Do you have an overabundance of people that apply for these things? And what does it cost that student to get involved in the program?
Yeah, well, again, I'll just focus on kind of like the traditional model, but we have all kinds of different sort of recruiting models and business models. But I mean, typically what we do is when we started out, we would do just traditional media, right? We would do radio ads, pretty much radio ads, right? And what we figured out is, again, sure, our demographic listens to the radio, but traditional media is very hard to measure your return on your investment, right?
Absolutely.
And you can't really, this station targets 25 to 45-year-olds or whatever. You can't really target your demographic. So we do all of our recruiting via social media, right? So your typical, social media stuff. We don't do TikTok, but
maybe you need to now. Yeah.
I know. I know. I keep telling Jake all the time, man, we got to get on TikTok. He tells me no. So I'm like, okay, I'll keep banging on that door. But so we target, we'll go into a city, and if we launch a program, we'll target that exact demographic that I just described. And sure, there are certain qualities or interests, right, of people that we target. But, we target a very broad age range. We target, obviously, males and females. But really, I think the most important thing that we do is we pitch to them the real reality. Like, we don't have like shiny trucks and, racing teams and all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, and literally, usually one of the first things that our campaigns say, if you can't show up on time and don't like to get your hands dirty, then don't come here, right? Yeah. But that's really what we pitch is that we're a very fast transition from whatever career you're in to an industry where 1 in 15 people in the United States work. I mean, that it's really about it's about time, it's about cost, and it's about jobs. That's really what it's about. It's about work opportunity, right? Yeah. And we tell people, we will decruit you before we recruit you. We're going to tell you the real story here. And so that we're just super, super honest and transparent with people.
So I know you have a lot of stories of people of where they started and where they're at today after coming through your program and the career opportunities. Is there one in particular that kind of comes to mind that you'd like to kind of share with everybody?
Yeah, I think one of my favorites is I did and we don't let anybody into the program unless we see them face to face. And so about we got to be pushing 2 years ago, maybe 18 months ago. This woman came in and she was with her little boy, and talked to her, and I don't even know where she heard about us. And so I did her interview and really didn't think too much about it. I thought, there's no way this just isn't the right fit for her, right? And it literally left, and it didn't even enter my mind. Well, about 2 weeks later, I got a text from a buddy of mine here in Columbus, random text. Hadn't heard from him in probably a year. He goes, "Hey, Tim, I just want to let you know, this gal named Amelia works for me, or she worked for me. She's leaving because she's going to come to your program and she wants to become a diesel technician. She's a total badass, but honestly, she'll make way more working in that business than in my business." And so I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Didn't even think anything about it again. So I happened to be at the shop, and somebody mentioned something about Amelia. And I'm like, I started putting two and two together. I'm like, holy cow. That's the gal that I did the tour with, that I got the text about. Well, the interesting thing about Amelia is that she left our program, and she went through our truck program. And she's now working at Bobcat here in Columbus, Ohio, heavy equipment, and is just absolutely crushing it, right?
Yeah.
And so she's posted, and I wish we would have set this up, but I mean, she posted this phenomenal picture of her on Facebook that literally was kind of like the recreation of like their World War II Rosie the Riveter pose, And I just thought, I mean, it's just so fun to see people, because I mean, she was making, I don't know, I mean, roughly, let's say $12, $13 an hour. I don't know what she's making now, but it's probably well over $20 an hour. And that's in a less than a year and a half period. And she has, again, like she'll definitely be a leader within that company. And so that's and I could sit here forever and tell you stories like that. That's what's so fun about what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really love about what you guys do, because what you're doing is you're creating a lot of wins for a lot of people. First of all, people like Amelia, and there are a lot of Amelias out there that are just looking for an opportunity to use their skills and their passion and their drive and their effort to further themselves. You're solving the diesel technician shortage problem by helping out a lot of people. And then you're also obviously growing your company, which is a great entrepreneur story as well. So it's really, you're filling a lot of gaps in solving problems. And that's really what I love about American Diesel Training Centers is you didn't really start this thing to go make a bunch of money. You started this thing to go solve some problems. And that's really the heart of what you guys do at American Diesel Training Centers.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, and our belief is that, if we solve the problems, the financial rewards will come, right? But and Amelia is just a perfect example, because she just, I guarantee you, did not, with her little boy was probably 5 years old, a working mom with a child. She doesn't have 2 years to drive to a traditional brick and mortar program. It's just not going to happen. But in 10 weeks, we made that happen for her, right? Yeah. And so it literally, if we do this right, and we're not perfect, it truly is the win-win-win. We solve a problem for companies. We dramatically improve people's lives and their earning power and their career power and their self-esteem. And we run a profitable business. So it really is kind of the three-legged stool.
So I thought of you the other day, because I hang out on social media a lot, Facebook groups, I'm on Reddit, all these places, and there was a person.
You put me to shame.
I just like to talk about business, so it's perfect. But I think it was like a Facebook group, a mechanic group, and someone came on there and said, "Look, I'm in my early 20s. I work at basically a truck stop. I do oil changes. Mm-hmm. There's no opportunity for me here to move up. I want to do more with my career. How do I do it?" And I sat there, I'm like, I don't even know what to tell this guy. Like it's not easy to go from that. It's even hard to get into that position. And then to go from that to say, I want to go make, 60, 70, 80 grand a year doing this. The kid absolutely loves it. He talked about how much he loved it. And it was hard to give him a good answer on how you keep bettering yourself and finding those new opportunities. It's really tough in our industry, and we complain about the shortage, but there's not a lot of people creating good solutions. And I know the big key with yours as well is really come down to cost and funding. And I've heard you say it many times before, it's really a funding issue with these 2-year tech programs and the overtraining. Can you just give a little overview, I guess, kind of what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a funding issue. And if you take a look at it and look, I mean, the average starting salary of someone coming out of our program is going to be roughly, let's say $40,000 a year, roughly $18 to $20 an hour. Now, the crazy thing is $40,000 a year is about the average starting salary of a 4-year college grad, right? Yep. That's a whole other conversation. but I mean, $40,000 a year, if you are not weighed down by massive student loan debt, is not a bad place to start. Now, you're not going to drive a nice car, and you're probably not going to have a super, nice apartment, but it's a good start, right? And many of these kids who go to one of your traditional technical programs, that's what they come out in debt, right? Very, very few of these folks pay cash for these programs. Almost all of them take advantage of what's called Title IV funding, meaning student loans. So they all come out saddled with significant amounts of student loan debt. So if you do the math, at 40 grand, then you take taxes out, then you take gas, and you take rent, then you take clothes, then you take food. There's nothing there. So that's why we're so focused on the funding issue. Now, if you come out of our program, if you walked in, is $10,000. If you walked in off the street and wanted to come to our program, it's $10,000. We think that that's a good value, and there's different ways we don't take any government money, but we have different ways to fund the program. But typically we really work hard to keep people's payments in the $250 to $275 range. That's typically what it is. We feel that's a solid return on their investment, and it allows us to run the business, but also give them good training and work very hard to get them good jobs. But that's the biggest problem is even today, many of your community colleges are $20,000 to $25,000 for a 2-year program, right? So it's that money plus it's all that time you spend where you're missing out on earning potential.
And is it that expensive because they have to do that in order to be eligible to get the student loan money, or what's the reason behind that?
Well, I think we can separate into 2 areas. Kind of your traditional technical schools. That's just they charge that much because they have to charge that much, right? They have many of them have their destination campuses. They have an infrastructure. They have a huge enrollment staff that they have to support. They just have a lot of cost to support. Yeah. Your community colleges, and I talked a little bit about this on when we did your virtual truck expo, funding for community college has gone consistently down for the last 20 to 30 years, right? So it's the very same thing. The only way they can make up for that, literally, that they can control is raising tuition. It's the only thing they can do. So that's really the problem. It's a funding problem, right? It's not a training problem. It's a funding problem.
Yeah, totally agree. So let's go talk about American Diesel Training Centers a little bit. You started this company. You've been going for about 3 years. You're doing hands-on training classes all over the country. And then COVID hit, right?
Oh,
So how have you guys dealt with that? Like, I mean, did you guys pause all courses? Have you started back up again? What have you done?
Yeah. So, I mean, the funny thing, well, you were there. I think you were on a plane after me. I mean, we were both probably some of the last planes to leave Las Vegas before it completely shut down, right? Yeah. We were out there for a conference. And, so we'd already planned what we were going to do, in terms of social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then it was taken out of our hands, right? I mean, we were shut down. Yeah. Which really stunk. So we paused all of our operations that was in, I think, in Ohio. Things were shut down in mid-March. So we paused everything. And then as we were permitted to bring things back online, we brought Columbus back online on June 1st. We brought we brought Kansas City back online before that because the stay-at-home restrictions eased. We brought Columbus back online June 1st. We brought Cincinnati back online a couple weeks ago, and by August we'll have all of our locations from as far away as Tacoma, Washington, back online. But we've really taken some good out of the COVID situation. It forced us to take some time to really think about the business and to maybe, I don't want to say reprioritize, but juggle some priorities around. From opening back up from a health and safety standpoint, the beautiful thing about and I would love to take credit for being this smart, I'm not, is that we were built for social distancing. We have a 20,000 square foot facility in Columbus. Our classes are no bigger than 10 people. Yeah. So if we needed to put people 100 feet apart, we can put people 100 feet apart, right? So we have a wellness station as folks come in. We take their temperature. We supply them masks. Everybody has their own hand sanitizer. And then when they are working on trucks, close quarters, we ask that they wear masks. So, kind of coming back from a operational standpoint really wasn't that challenging for us. And we're super, super cognizant of, following exactly the state and the CDC guidelines and all that kind of stuff. Now, from a business situation, the unemployment has actually helped us recruit. Recruiting is easier because there's so many students, so many people now. They've been put out of work, or maybe they've said, you know what, now is the time for me to look at a career change. I think the thing the restaurant and the hotel and the service industry has just been decimated. Yep. So there are a lot of people that maybe were working in maintenance workers in hotels that no longer have jobs. And we're a really good solution for them. And really, if you look at it, and we do most of our sort of market forecasting on posted job postings on job boards, Indeed or whatever, the job postings have held up. They took a dip, but they've held up pretty well. I mean, I would say they're maybe a little bit behind last year, but essentially across the United States, if you look at, I didn't look today, but on Indeed, there were about 17,000 postings for diesel technicians on Indeed yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Even in a pandemic like this, and places shut down and states were locked down, like you said, they took a little bit of a dip, and so did volume in terms of repair orders and part sales and all that. But it seems like it's kind of V'd right back up now to where it was before. So that's an interesting take, though. Basically, this thing, same situation on our side. I think it really caused us to look at a lot of things we weren't looking at and kind of get serious about them all of a sudden and say, man, we need to do this. When things were blowing and going and ththings were going so good, you kind of let a lot of that stuff go. And all of a sudden, a lot of little stuff turns into big stuff. So very similar situation over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you do it too. I mean, I was on the road all the time, traveling all over the place. And it really has been nice to really be able to focus on the business, right? Versus out speaking at a conference or at meetings or whatever. And honestly, we've gotten a lot better, as I'm sure you guys have, at using technology and Zoom and Google Meet and all that kind of stuff many people watching us are probably business owners, to really just cut costs, right? I mean, I don't know that there are some meetings now that I would get on an airplane and go to. I'd probably just say, let's just do a Zoom call.
Yeah. We're the same way. It sounds remarkable, but we were able to cut almost $400,000 in expenses out of our monthly expenses without laying off any employees or affecting payroll one bit, right? And we just chose to make some decisions and cut some things out and do a different way. And you know what? We're still doing pretty good. So maybe I didn't need to spend all that money on trade shows and travel and online marketing, right? Like,
yeah, totally. Same thing. So yeah, trust me, I would way rather go back to February of this year. I have no doubt about it, right? But we've really tried to look at this from let's just remarshal and refocus and come out stronger than when we went in.
Yeah. And we were fortunate on the sales side because we did, besides trade shows, our employees weren't allowed to travel anyway. So we did everything over phones and internets and go-to meetings and Zoom and whatever. So it's funny seeing some of our competitors posting our sales team figuring it out how to do remote sales. I'm like, we've been doing that for 4 years. That's just that's okay.
Club, yeah.
Yeah. But so I want to pick your brain about one thing, kind of a subject here before we kind of call this an episode. And you talked about a little bit when we did the virtual truck repair expo, and we talked about a little bit before this, and that's kind of the future of colleges and universities. I totally agree. Kids decide, I guess I can call it kid now. I just turned 42, right? So kids come out of high school and they say, I need to go to college, and they start paying 30, 40, 50 grand a year to go get their basics done at a 4-year university. And they're trying to figure it out. And universities probably aren't going to be quite the same this year. And they're already talking about dropping enrollment. I know here in South Carolina, the University of South Carolina, they came out this week and said, hey, we expect to lose $138 million this year because of all the things that got canceled. Are you seeing the same thing with, kind of the education space, since you kind of come from there? And, where do you think it's going to go this year? Are all the colleges going to survive in this thing that's done? Or are they, where does it go?
I think, and I want to be careful about what I say here, because obviously we're huge fans of education. My wife's a teacher, my mom's a teacher, but I mean, I think that what we're going to see in higher education, what we're seeing already, is COVID has really been the tipping point of everything, right? A lot of higher education was basically running on fumes before COVID hit, and now it's really changed the calculus for everything. So I think, I'm not the only one saying this, and this has been said for a while, but I think what you're going to see is, I think that this will be the catalyst for parents and students to rethink, does my kid really need 4 years at a school, especially a very expensive school? I think more than ever now, education will be tied to jobs. Like, the days of going to Ohio State's 25 minutes down the street for me, the days of going to Ohio State to kind of find yourself, learn, a liberal arts type education. I think those are really, really winding down. It's so expensive that people are just going to demand, and there really hasn't been. They're going to demand that what I learn and what I pay for is tied to a job. I think, and you're already seeing it. I think you'll see a lot of smaller, very expensive, with poor endowments, private colleges go out of business. The thing that really concerns me, and I talked about it in your expo, that really concerns me and is really frustrating, is that the community college system in this country is so already at capacity, and budgets have been cut and are going to be cut more, that the irony is that more people than ever are going to need to be reskilled for a trade. And I don't believe that the community college system in the United States, as it is, can accommodate that. There's no way. Like, for example, here in Ohio, we're going to lose $300 million in education funding, right? So that's the ultimate irony, is in a situation where more people than ever need an affordable way to be retrained and reskilled. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's robotics or CNC or computer coding or whatever. I don't know that the infrastructure is there to support the demand, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as you. I see, what I see, right, is I see we have more student loan debt than credit card debt in the United States.
Right.
I see the pace, the rate of increases in college tuition is way above the rate of inflation. So that's been going on. And these colleges have been just relying on us getting max capacity and getting students in here and having them 2 in a dorm room and getting all that lodging money and the food money and the sports money and the tuition. Yes. And all of a sudden, all that money and people aren't there, and they have their same cost structure. There's going to be kind of a reckoning, I think, in the whole education space, that upper education space coming up quick.
There's going to be a huge reckoning, and you're already seeing it, right? And you're already going to see it with, many small schools are going to have business. Programs are going to be cut, almost certainly. Student services are going to be cut. But there's just going to be a consolidation. There's no doubt there's going to be a consolidation, and there's going to be I'm not sure how I feel about this. I mean, there's going to be your big brand name schools are going to be fine.
Yeah, right? Harvard, Yale, yeah, they're good.
Yeah, and even your Ohio States and South Carolinas, they're going to be fine. But I worry about, like mid-tier state schools, right? Like, all of, options for Ohio State has become so competitive to get into. And I worry about schools that are options, maybe a second option for a kid who didn't get into Ohio State or whatever. But frankly, my opinion is many of the schools out there, especially your super expensive private colleges, it's the market. It's market forces finally at work, because a lot of them have been able to escape those market forces just by raising tuition and relying on loans and grants, et cetera.
Well, especially if colleges come out and say, well, we're going to do online classes. Why would I go pay $50,000 a year for an online course when I can go do that somewhere else for a fraction of that, right? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Not happening. My son is a junior at Ohio State and has some of his friends, have some of his friends over and stuff with bonfire or whatever. And those kids have all said, if my school is going online in the fall, I'm taking a gap year. I'm not doing it. So I like online education. I think online education works for, and it was really started for people who didn't have access to education, and also working adults who wanted convenience. Online education was never built really to give you a better product than a face-to-face setting. Now, there's hybrid situations work, but it was really never built to replace kind of that face-to-face setting with instructors and other students, et cetera. So, yeah, it's going to be a real problem. But like Ohio State has already announced, no classes of more than 100 students. Okay, if anybody's ever sat in a class at Ohio State, that's going to be a problem. So, yeah, I mean, they're still good. I mean, I had a class with 700 people there, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure that the logistics professors at every college on the planet have been working 80-hour weeks this summer, trying to help the schools like how to manage just dealing with the COVID situation. But yeah, I mean, I really do. Again, I would way rather go back to February, but I mean, higher education has been so inefficient for years. Some disruptive, destructive capitalism, for lack of a better word, needed to happen.
Yeah, I agree. So, Tim, what did I leave out? Anything we missed talking about American Diesel Training Centers that I forgot to touch on here during this episode?
I don't think so. You left out my annoying French bulldog when you leave the room. So, he's going to... no, I mean, I don't think so. I think more than anything that, I think you said it perfectly, but I mean, more than anything, we're advocates for our students, right? I mean, we really got into this because straight out, if you ask me, the number one reason we founded American Diesel was I was just tired of seeing kids. And I call them kids. I'm 52, so I can call pretty much anybody a kid these days. I was tired of seeing kids come out of programs $30,000 to $40,000 in student loan debt and set up to fail. That's really what it all boils. And there was a better solution, right? Yeah. And that's really why we started the business. Is that we solve a huge industry need. We help people. And we run a business and employ people, which generates, good for the economy and stuff. So if we do it right, it truly is a dreaded win-win-win situation. So, that's it.
So, Tim, if people want to connect with you or learn more about American Diesel Training Centers, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. You can just go to AmericanDieselTraining.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, that's the website is probably the best place. And, I'm not as active as you, but I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So I communicate with a lot of people every day. But yeah, that's where they can reach me. And it's been, really, Chris and I were talking a couple of days ago about, I don't even think I was there. I think I'd left the booth when you had really just got Diesel Laptops cranking. Maybe it was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know, at TMC, and you guys met. So it's been really, I mean, beyond impressive what you guys have done with the company. It's been great to work and partner with you on some different ventures. So congratulations.
Well, it's been awesome working with you as well. You guys have a great thing going there. I love what you're doing. You're helping people, helping companies. You're finding a better solution for everything. So everybody, Tim Spurlock, American Diesel Training Centers, we'll call this an episode. I really appreciate you either watching us on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or on every other device that's out there. So again, thank you for watching the DL. I was your host, Tyler Robertson. And remember, it's not diagnostics, it's diagnostics done right.